welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher. So let's jump right into it. We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're here for something different. I had a subscriber of the channel mention to me in one of my comments, hey, I'd love to hear your origin story in comics, and in turn, how I got into YouTube and so on and so forth. Everything that's basically going on for the past 3 years. Before we get started into the video, guys, like always, I'm going to ask you guys, if you're not a current subscriber of the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and click the subscribe button. You will not regret it. It is a lot of fun on this channel, in my opinion. I want you to tap that like button, of course, and I want you to turn on notifications because I'll let you guys know when I post new videos. But with that said, I thought this was a great question. What is my origin story? So I guess it has to start when I was a kid. That's when my love of comics and all things comic related kind of happened. You know, I kind of fell in love with reading and the artwork, especially of comics, at an early age. My dad had owned a small pharmacy when I was a kid, and he had comics at the store. He had not only on the spinner racks, but he also had them on a nice shelving on the wall, and I'd have access to all these great comics. I'm talking about in the late 80s, you know, early 90s, stuff like that time. And of course, I got into a lot of the Spider-Man books. I got into a lot of the Hulk books later on, so the Punisher and Batman, of course. Batman was one of my favorites as well. But also, you know, being into comics in the store and having access to them I was able to go to a local shop. Now, when I say local, it wasn't like in my hometown. It was probably like 3 or 4 towns over. And I wouldn't be able to get there all the time. But when I did get there, they had some amazing stuff. I'm talking about, I remember seeing an Amazing Spider-Man #1 on their wall, and just something to see that back then. I didn't know the significance of it back then when I was a kid. I had no idea that that was the first Spider-Man in his own title, but I knew that the book was iconic. I knew that the cover was iconic, and I absolutely loved the artwork. If many of you guys don't notice that when I do shoot some of my videos, you guys will know in the background I have this like Spider-Man, you know, figurine in my shelving that I have my AF-15 in and all my other big books. I actually got that from that shop when I was a kid. My dad had purchased it for me. They had a bunch of different ones. I want to say they're made by Hallmark. I could be wrong on that, but I fell in love with that thing. I fell in love with the books they had in that store. And of course, back then, I didn't know anything about, you know, back issue diving, you know, picking up keys. I knew nothing of that stuff. I only knew of the characters themselves, and I really had a great eye for what would come to be some of the best covers that we've ever seen. I'll give you a little bit of a story. When I was a kid, I went to my cousin's house in Long Island, and I'd go out and stay at his house for a couple days, maybe like once every 6 months or so, and we go hang out and we just do everything that, you know, normal kids do. But he had a comic shop probably 2 towns over, and we weren't allowed to do this, but we did it anyway. We took couple of his bikes and we rode out there, and I'm talking like I'm probably like 10 years old at this point, you know, pedaling 2 towns over with my cousin, and they had one of the best comic shops I've ever been to. They actually had a prop gun from the original Batman movie with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. They had the prop gun, the grapple gun there. They had one of the first comics that I ever purchased on my own was a copy of the Batman, I forgot the issue, but the Joker fish comic with Joker with the guns that they're fish. That was one of my earliest pickups that I ever picked up when I was a kid. I'm talking I'm 10, 11 years old at this point, and I picked out that cover because that is, of course, an iconic cover. So that was really where the love of comics kind of started with. And then, of course, it progressed in the 90s when the Batman movie came out, and everybody was going nuts for that movie, including myself. I saw it like 3 times in the theater. It was absolutely awesome for the time period. And then, you know, as we get older, we kind of fall out of the hobby a little bit. We kind of, you know, tend to go towards other things as we grow up that become more important in our lives. But the other thing I forgot to mention was that when I was a kid, I really liked to draw. I like to draw things, and my cousin was the same way. Every time I go to his house, we draw stuff and do stuff along those artistic lines. And that was part of the reason why I got into the comics anyway, was the big part of it was the artwork, because I loved the artwork. Some of my biggest influences back then were, of course, John Romita. You guys know, if you watch my channel religiously, he's my favorite artist of all time. Jack Kirby, of course, Todd McFarlane. As I got older into the 90s, the way he drew Spider-Man and the webbing and everything, it was really just a callback to the detail that went into this stuff that I absolutely loved. So back to me getting out of comics for a little bit. Of course, when you're a teenager, stuff like that, there's other things in your life that are more important than comics. And I actually got back into it, believe it or not, once I graduated college, right before the MCU started. And I, of course, started picking up bigger issues, right? I had just come out of college, I started earning some money, and I would start picking up some massive keys. I remember I had a Tales of Suspense 39. I had a Hulk 181. I had a Giant Size X-Men 1, 7.5. I'll never forget that. It was a CGC graded book that I picked up for $500 back then. I had a ton of books that I wish I still had today, because the amount of money that I paid for them back then was absolutely nothing. But of course, like any collector, you get back into the hobby and then you get back out of it. So I think right after the MCU started, I started selling off books and kind of disappearing from the hobby again. And then it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago, when I started coming on YouTube, that I started picking up comics again. Now, I got back into it because I had gotten married. I have 2 stepsons, and the younger one, of course, was into Marvel, and it kind of brought back all those memories that I had when I was a kid about, you know, getting into the hobby. He's the same way. He loves the artwork. He loves the characters. Spider-Man's his favorite. So getting back into it with him made it fun. And of course, it brings back all those memories that you had as a kid. As far as YouTube goes, I started watching YouTube channels. I started watching comic YouTube channels, and he partly got me into that as well. And I just was greatly entertained and said, oh, you know what, I remember this, I remember that. And I started, you know what, could I do this? I was picking up books at the time when I was going to local shows. I was picking up stuff on eBay. I said, could I start doing YouTube and posting my stuff on there? That's exactly what I started doing. I would buy books. I would do comic hauls on YouTube. If you guys go back and check out some of those videos, they're awful, but some of the amazing books that I purchased back then, for the prices I got them, were absolutely amazing. I will be posting and reposting some of those early videos so you guys can see some of the amazing deals I got when I first got back into collecting. And if you collect now and you know how expensive everything is, even though the market has come down, you could see that, you know, it's quite crazy. So with that said, the YouTube ride is just something that I wanted to do just to see if I could do it. And then we finally got to like 1,000 subscribers. It's like, wow, you know what? It took me almost 3 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. It was harder than I thought. And then, of course, we started to take off a bit, started doing the Hot 10 breakdown of the week, and now we have Copper Drop. And those have been quite popular, so I will continue to do those going forward. But the YouTube thing was just fun for me. And now, of course, it's a little bit of a brand. I've turned it into, like, you know, Mighty Comics and Collectibles, just to see, you know, where this thing could go. Some of the guys who influenced me to kind of get on here, I want to shout out a little bit, because not only did I watch the big boys like Gem Mint and Comic Tom, I loved, you know, what they did. They both are great at entertaining everybody out there, and that's what made YouTube fun. It wasn't just relaying information. It wasn't just giving you guys comic hauls. It was like, hey, this is fun. I want to try to entertain the people out there, so let me try to go ahead and do that. And they were 2 of the guys that really entertained me early on. Knowledge-wise, some of the guys I always watch and continue to watch to this day are Alex the Comic Hoarder, Chris at We Love Comics. I find their videos not only informative, but I can get through them and enjoy watching them, and without having to pause or break through or just get through stuff, because they are not only entertaining, but they also give you a lot of information along the way. Now, with the way the market is, like, a lot of the books have spiked and now they're coming back down. A lot of people are asking me to do undervalued videos. I think a lot of people out there are doing undervalued videos right now, but in this market, my advice to everyone out there would be kind of stick to the best of the best right now. From each age, you know, copper, golden, silver, bronze, you know, modern. Stick to the best of each age. That is where you're going to get the best bang for your buck, but you're also never going to feel disappointed in what you pick up. On the other side of that, you guys could always say, hey, if you buy what you like, you're never going to be disappointed anyway, and I think that's always probably the best advice. But back to YouTube and comics, it's just fun for me. Like I said, if I can entertain anybody out there and shoot you some information. That's really what this channel is all about, and I've made some great friends along the way, both new and old, and I continue to watch some of you guys out there. But as for my origin story, it's a come and go type of thing, right? As a kid, we get into it, we leave for a little bit, we come back, we leave, we come back. It's just something that's always going to be a part of your life. I'm happy it's been a part of my life, and hopefully I think going forward with the YouTube channel and everything else that goes along in between it, you know, this will be with me for the next probably 30 to 40 years of my life. So with that said, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.